Today we are again embedded with a recon unit in the 20th Panzer Division as it advances first on the Russian city of Olita and then as it took part in the operation to take the Lithuanian capital of Vilnius. We'll see the different types of vehicles that the Panzer Division had on hand at the time, and we'll finish up by looking at a German newspaper from June 22nd with the declaration of war on the Soviet Union. Stick around to see that. I'm sure you'll find it interesting. As you probably know, I try to weave in multiple primary source materials to provide a historical perspective that is more in focus. If you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and do that. You won't be disappointed. So for now, let's get back to that recon unit. Let's go! Even having known about the incomplete Soviet defenses, that first day was significantly easier than Divisional Command had expected. The 20th had brought in 500 captured soldiers, 20 of those being officers, 10 trucks, and plenty of weapons and ammunition. Arriving to the city of Olita, the 7th Panzer Division had managed to capture the bridge over the river Nieman and establish a small bridgehead on the far side. At the time, a counterattack from the Russian 5th Tank Division was underway, but the two German armored divisions together were able to beat it off. As a result of the traffic jams on the road to Olita, fuel trucks were unable to keep up with the attacking panzers, and now the advance had to wait. The entire logistical planning necessary for the movement of such large quantities of men and material had not yet been adequately developed by the Wehrmacht. Distances were simply on a different scale than had been experienced in the earlier campaigns. We go into this deeper in the videos related to the 7th Panzer Division, so take a look. Here we are looking at motorized radio funkers, which maintain the communications between the units. On the morning of June 23rd, the fuel finally had arrived that was necessary to continue the advance, and at 900 hours, the 20th moved out in the direction of Vilnius. On June 22nd, as the 20th Panzer Division moved into the Soviet Union, it had the following vehicles on hand. 170 Panzerkampfwagen. The standard German battle tank at this time was the Panzer III, however there were still quite a large number of obsolete Panzer IIs and Is in service. 287 Schützenpanzerwagen. 16 Panzerspähwagen. This included the SD KFZ 222 and the larger 232. 21 Panzerjäger, which were basically anti-tank guns mounted on top of tank chassis. The division had 43 pieces of artillery, including 10 cm and 15 cm howitzers, being transported by half-track. Also considered artillery, they had 12 heavy infantry Sturmpanzer, which had 15 cm howitzers. From around midday at the city of Eigerny and thereafter, the division was engaged by enemy tanks and infantry. Progress from now on was slow, which was to a large extent because of the soft, sandy, and marshy ground, which couldn't well support the heavy weight of the armored vehicles. Not only did this slow progress, but it also wasted fuel that was already critically low on supply. Here we are looking at the advance of the 20th Panzer Division on June 23rd, between Olita and Vilnius. Another problem caused by the heavy vehicles traveling on the dried out sandy roads was that huge clouds of dust were thrown up that showed Soviet bombers exactly where the division was located. Numerous bomber attacks forced the division to halt, however relatively little damage was done. Finally, 4 German fighters engaged a squadron of 7 attacking bombers and were able to shoot down 4. From then on, the division was able to advance unhindered. The 20th's role in taking Vilnius would be to cut off the city to the west and southwest with the 7th Panzer Division to its right flank. As this was happening, a courier and translator was sent out to find a representative of the Soviet forces in the city to ask them to surrender. As they were entering, it was seen that the enemy troops had already left, and elements of the 7th Panzer Division began streaming in. At 1600 hours, it was reported that the city had been occupied, basically without a fight. During the fighting from June 22nd and 23rd, the 20th Panzer Division had destroyed 26 enemy tanks. During these first few days of combat, the problems associated with having such a large variety of vehicle types became clear. Spare parts were not uniform, which meant that the necessary stock on hand had to be larger than usual in order for the mechanical crews to keep the vehicles operational. The French vehicles also proved to be less capable on the comparatively primitive Russian roads. As the seasons changed, with the introduction of Russian mud and then snow, these problems would become much more acute.
And now for something completely different.
This is a complete collection of Illustrierte Beobachter, which was an illustrated propaganda magazine that was published by the Nazi Party in Munich from 1926 to 1945. This collection contains all the papers for the year of 1941. Tucked into the collection in June, I found this random Niedersächsische Tageszeitung, which was a daily paper for June 22nd. Actually, it's a special edition. That's what Sonderausgabe means. So on that day, as the troops we've been talking about were storming forwards, or, depending on the hour, sitting stuck in a traffic jam, in Hanover, this paper was being read by the German population. It's amazing to think that until this moment, most had little to no idea that war with Russia was a serious possibility. Was that really the case? This is how the government wanted the German population to find out about the war. The main title on this weighty day was "Getting Even with Moscow," which implies that the Soviets had brought the coming war on themselves. From a military standpoint, the enormity of the endeavor is captured by the next title, which states that the new front stretches from the Nordkap at the northern tip of Norway all the way down to the Black Sea, which is a front of 2,900 kilometers, or 1,800 miles. Next we see that this turn of events has taken a weight off of Hitler's shoulders, that the German-Soviet alliance was unbearable, and that he can now finally openly speak his mind. The next title is to assure the reader that the Germans are not in this war against the Soviets alone. The Finns and the Romanians are in it with them. And finally it's declared that the alliance with the Soviets had been a farce all along, because they'd been caught negotiating secretly with the British. In other words, the war has been thrust upon the Germans. Then the paper explains the message from Hitler given to the soldiers on the new Eastern Front. It says that they have again been given the difficult responsibility of fighting for the survival of the nation. Their actions will determine the fate of Europe and the future of the German Reich. these weighty questions lie completely in their hands. Interestingly enough, it ends with the phrase, "May God help all of us in the coming battle." Thanks for watching.